He's been there since 1980, I believe, and he's also the former history department chair. His interests are U.S. history, especially American Revolution, Civil War, and history of U.S. Catholicism. I think my favorite, he teaches a course in the J term called The March for Life. And he's done some wonderful things with that, and maybe he'll share a little bit of that with us tonight as well. He's originally from the Pittsburgh area. David has earned his BA from Penn State. My son-in-law agrees. Any Steeler fans? They're kind of quiet. And he got his MA and PhD from Notre Dame. He also served in the U.S. Army. Dave has a loving wife and 3 grown children. His presentation tonight includes science fiction, and science fantasy laced with humor. He will reveal the understanding of the pro-abortion brain. So, do carrots have a right to life? Presented by Dr. David Salveterra.
Thank you all for letting me come, and thank you for coming. My original fear was it would be raining tonight, and nobody would want to get wet. I didn't think to worry about it would be so beautiful. The other opposite danger, Marion brought this up. Laura has a thing called January term courses. It started about, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. When it first started out, I kept thinking, do I want to do that or don't I want to do that? If I do, what would I do? What kind of course would I do? What's going to always take place in January that's a significant event? I thought about it for weeks and weeks, and it just wasn't. And then one day it just popped in my head. January 22nd. It's always going to be during January. And so why not do a course on the March for Life? Do the read work, do the classwork here, and then actually go. The other thing about the J-term courses is they have to have an experiential dimension. What better experiential dimension to interview March for Life? So both. Well, it's been one of the more amazing experiences of my teaching career.
There we go.
One of the things that I had the students read this past January, we will be talking about tonight. It's one of the actual assignments. In fact, it's the very first thing I assigned. And as I'm reading it to get ready for the course, I run across a passage where the author raises the issue of, do carrots have a right to life? This is a university philosophy professor from the University of Colorado. Looking at that passage in that book, thinking, I also should tell you, I also have grandchildren. They're available for the course. I was visiting my son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren and reading this book, and this part of this book that we're going to talk about. I'm reading pro-choice logic. How do you think it through if you start from pro-choice premises? Where do you end up? And I'm with my grandchildren reading this older Colorado philosopher who's raising issues like, do carrots have a right to life? There's something wrong here somewhere. First of all, my disqualifications and my disclaimer. Most of the people who study abortion on the academic side of things are either philosophers or theologians. I am neither. Not a philosophy student, except for a couple undergraduate courses. Not a theology student, except mostly self-taught. I am a historian. Historians are starting to get interested in this question. It's a wonderful sign. It's about time. And I do, since I do the course, I have to stay up with the academic developments of what books are coming out, what they say, and so forth. So to do the course, I have to do it. And life issues are inherently interdisciplinary. There's no one discipline that gets it. We've got all the answers. And finally, the standard Loras disclaimer: I am not speaking tonight on behalf of Loras College. I'm speaking on behalf of me. Who's the bolder philosopher? His name is Michael Tooley. And it's from a book I assigned for the course last January. The book is called Abortion, Three Perspectives. First perspective is Tooley's, which we will talk about. The other two we won't have time for, because it takes a long time to get through Tooley. The title of Tooley's article in the book is Abortion, Why a Liberal View is Correct. In other words, Dubuque County right to life, you're wrong. The liberal view is correct. The liberal view, or the pro-choice view, is the correct one. Notice he doesn't say it's moral. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about it in just a minute. He says it's correct, meaning I'll reason it through and I will arrive at the logically correct answer. Well, Michael Tooley is an atheist, and he's happy to admit it. Worse than that, we'll find out in a minute. His atheistic approach, at least he gets it. Abortion is a serious and complicated issue, and he gives it very great attention. Religion, throw it out the window. Religious authority, authoritative religious statements, scripture, canon law, whatever else you want to throw at him, dispense with it. He has no use for it. Don't forget, he's teaching at one of our better public universities. His starting point is not going to be your starting point. He wants to take every consideration associated with religion, throw it in the trash can. It's irrelevant. He also doesn't like package deals. Catholics, some of you may be Catholic. I'm not going to make you raise your hands. If you're Catholic, it's probably part of a package deal, most of which parts were assembled by Pope John Paul. Saint, I have to remember that now. Saint John Paul. We have a package deal called, we have a theological anthropology. What does that mean? We have a view of the nature of humans and the purpose of humans. That's basic theology. So our Catholics, great life views are part of the package deal. Humans have a transcendent and teleological purpose. We're not just about the here, this material, physical world, we're about what's beyond. That's how we look at people. That's in the field, in the academy, that's called a theological anthropology. And we say, we have a nature and a purpose. We're a peculiar kind of being, we're an important kind of being, and so on and so forth. He doesn't like that. He's an atheist, so he wants no theology in consideration. What's the alternative? A philosophical anthropology. Materialistic, non-theistic, makes no reference to any religion, any religious idea, any religious authority, any religious authoritative statement, any religious authoritative teaching. None of it makes any difference to him at all. And he also does a sort of a pro forma objection to a package deal called feminism, which almost always ends up in a pro-choice camp. Not always. There is an organization in the United States called pro-life feminism. Most of the time, it's a package deal that includes pro-choice. What's his beef with religion? Why? Why must we throw it all out? Scripture, popes, councils, encyclicals, canon law, all of it, throw it out. Theistic philosophers are very much in the minority. I wonder how he knows. Does he go to the American Philosophical Association and say, oh, nice to meet you, I'm an atheist too. How does he know? Most philosophers do not think there is any good reason for believing in the existence of God. Just read that again. Most philosophers do not think there's any good reason for believing in the existence of God, and if that's not enough for you, then he outdoes himself by saying most philosophers are even less inclined to think that there are good reasons for accepting any of the world's religions. Buddhism, and then he specifies Buddhism, Hinduism, Confucianism, Taoism, Shintoism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. That's it. They're all, throw them all out. There's nothing there that anybody should pay any attention to. Anyway, why did I start with this reading for the students in that course? What's going to challenge them more than reading this stuff? I can't think. Especially if you're pro-life and you're starting to read this stuff and saying, this is the first thing in the course, where do we go from here? If you don't yet have enough reasons to ignore religion, here's some more. Many philosophers may think that religious arguments are so bad that they do not deserve discussion. They're such pathetic arguments they can afford to just ignore it. In a pluralistic society, it would be, it would be inappropriate to base legislation on religious beliefs. That's been liberal dogma in the United States since John Rawls published his first edition of Justice. Notice 1971. Just in time to give the justices on the Supreme Court shoring up for what they're going to do. 1973. And then there's his fear that it might lead in the not too distant future, horrors, to a society where abortion is prohibited. Horrors. What if that were to happen? Wouldn't that be just terrible? By the way, I wonder where he gets his information, because the philosophers at Morris College are not atheists. I know at least a couple of them belong to something called the Society for Christian Philosophers. I highly doubt that they go to meetings of that organization and say, hello, I'm an atheist too. I don't think so. I think there are philosophers who are theists. You know, they may not be the kind that he hangs around with. Well, we have a problem. We've thrown all of it out. Sacred teaching, sacred readings, sacred teachers, authentic teaching, religious authority, we've thrown it out. So what is relevant? It's a fair question, isn't it? Social science, psychology. Why psychology? You're more in a minute. Psychology is the social science that studies the brain. Memory, identity, thinking, or cognition. All fields of psychology. So psychology is relevant. Neuroscience. Boris is plunging into the field of neuroscience. Is it all this bad? I hope not. What else? Philosophy, Locke, Descartes, Kant. I can't tell you how deeply embedded it is in Western civilization. If I had 7 hours, I could give you the whole story. You don't want to stay that long. Neither do I, bro. Michael Tooley's argument. Hold on to your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Here it comes. Step 1. Only persons have a right to life. Only persons have a right to life. Not objecting yet. That's because you haven't noticed step 2. Step 2, human organisms are not persons. What's the difference between a person and a human organism? Human organisms are not persons before birth. Human organisms do not have a right to life before birth. Killing a human organism that does not have a right to life is not in itself prima facie wrong. Mark? Latin for on the face of it? Something like that?
The first instance.
The first instance. Killing a human organism, why did he make that distinction? It didn't seem that dangerous when you first looked at it, did it? Now there's a huge difference between persons and human organisms. Persons have rights, human organisms don't. Killing a human organism that does not have a right to life is not wrong. Therefore, killing a human organism before birth is not wrong either. I warned you to grab hold of your chair. What's the deal here? Where is he getting all this? Why do they want to make a distinction between persons and human organisms? One category which has rights, but doesn't. The philosopher's term for the discussion is performance versus endowment. Performance. In order to be a person, you must possess certain capabilities. In order to qualify for that enchanted category called personhood, where you have rights, where it's not okay to kill you. You have to have characteristics, you have to be able to perform certain things as a human being. So, and you have to possess them autonomously, they have to be replicable, you can repeat them. They have to be independent. Lists vary by authors. Some philosophers say it's the beginning of consciousness, and then they argue about when that happens. Some say beginning of sentience, when you can feel, and they argue about when that happens, and so on. this, they're very different. If you take the endowment approach, you come to a very different conclusion. You don't have to qualify. All you have to do is be a human organism or a person or preborn, whatever else you want to call it. Humanness does not come from our capacities, from our ability to perform certain things as humans. It comes from God and from membership in the species called Homo sapiens. It's genetic, biological, and from the moment of conception. I heard a doctor at a conference a couple of years ago from the University of Utah Medical School say this, and I wish she would say it publicly. There is no disagreement among scientists about when life begins. They agree. But because of the politics of the issue, they won't say that publicly. Human dignity, we say it's inherent, inviolable, irremovable, indestructible, internal. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to perform. You don't have to be able to have a collection of capabilities in order to be recognized as having worth. We are, says Scripture, made in the image of God. Made in the image and likeness of God. Pro-choice and performance. How does it work out in their arguments? You know the distinction they make. Personhood versus human organism. Only the performers are categorizable as persons. All beings must qualify as persons. No matter how small, preborn, no matter how old, end-of-life issues, no matter how incapacitated. What if you're a perfectly recognizable human being, but you're incapacitated during your life for some reason? We'll see one scenario with the way it works in a minute. If you fail to live up, if you fail to perform, if you fail to have the attributes, non-personhood, non-rights bearing. Those who are disqualifiable have no rights.